Yo, so guys, welcome back to another video. This is another Johnny Harris banger, and this one is why this... see, this is the canal that the boat was stuck on. I wasn't really following this. I didn't really look into it. And I don't know how to say it. I'm probably going to butcher the name. Why the Suez Canal is so insanely important, and nukes. Again, I don't know what that means. But yeah, I've heard a lot about this. Wasn't it... I don't know where it is, but I know it's involving China. I swear, like, or the majority of China's exports or imports, whatever you want to call them, come through this canal. And obviously, with the boat being like blocking it, they haven't been able to get their exports. I think it's moved at this point, or it managed to move out of the canal, but I'm not 100% sure. I just know about this. Again, just not the in-depth details. So firstly, this will show me about what happened, and it will explain why it was such a big story at the end of the day. I don't really know the ins and outs of it, but yeah, I'm sure this is going to explain everything I want to know. Again, it's another Johnny Harris video, and I do enjoy his videos, so I assume it's going to be a good, informative one. But yeah, let's just get into this one. Hopefully you're going to enjoy. Quick shout out to my Instagram, my Twitter, links in the description for those interested. Same for my Patreon, links are there for those interested. But yeah, man, let's check this out and see what he has to say in this. Because again, I don't really know much about this, if anything. I just know there's loads of memes with it as well, like so many memes to do with it and stuff. But yeah, let's get into it.
So the big ship is not stuck anymore, which is kind of cool. There was this big cargo ship, it's like a quarter-mile long, and it was stuck in the Suez Canal. It created this huge traffic jam,
blocking one of the world's most important ships.
So it is the Red Sea, Mediterranean Sea. This is Egypt. Is it Egypt? Does it come from... I think this is Egypt. I'm pretty sure this is.
They spent days trying to dig it out. It was costing like $400 million an hour for the global economy, and now it's not stuck. But I can't stop thinking about it, because this ship and it being stuck for a few days reminds us just what the global economy is and how important one little strip of water can be, both for the economy, but also for countries who want power. So, I gotta tell you an insane story about this canal. It was the 1960s, and the US government was thinking about using 520 nuclear bombs to make a new canal for themselves right here.
You couldn't get more US than that. Wait, so they're just gonna bomb it and make like a man-made canal? What?
Next to the Suez Canal, we're talking over 100 kilometers of a new canal to connect the Mediterranean to the Red Sea using nuclear bombs. Wait, what? Oh my gosh, it's so insane. Like, it's so insane. This was gonna cost like $5 billion in today's terms. And the idea here was to create a strategically valuable alternate to the present day Suez Canal. To understand why the US would even consider blowing up 520 nukes in the Israeli desert, you have to understand this little strip of water and why it has been so vital to so many powerful countries over the years. First, let's look at a map. This is an amazing project from shipmap.org, where each dot represents a cargo ship, similar size to like...
Bro, that is nuts. That's absolutely insane. These kinds of sort of maps and things that show and like really emphasize how like imports work, etc. It's just nuts. It's absolutely crazy to me. Like, look at these, man. It's ridiculous.
Cargo ship, similar size to...
Even between these little like... not rivers, these aren't called rivers, lakes. They're called lakes, right? That's where they are. And like this one here, isn't this the Black Sea? I feel like this is the Black Sea. Like, it's just crazy how...
To like the Empire State
between the small
Each of these
oceans,
ships is carrying around 1,000 containers. It's like 25,000 tons of stuff. These ships fuel our lifestyles. A good example is your iPhone, if you have one. Before you ever see your iPhone, there's an amazing journey that it goes on. Every individual part of your iPhone has its own little story. They're sourced from 43 different countries on all 6 continents. There's no way I could...
You're telling me this phone has been to 43 different countries. I've only ever been to one different country abroad. I've been to Scotland, but that's kind of just the UK. But this phone has been to 42 more countries than me. You're taking the piss, bro. And if it hasn't actually been to the UK before, It makes 44 countries. That has taken the
Go into
piss.
every single component. But let's just take one thing, the processor, the sort of brain of your iPhone. The processor starts as raw materials,
Look how small the processor is.
tons of raw materials, like boron from Turkey, or copper from Chile, or tantalum from Rwanda, and way, way more that are mined in different countries and shipped to a factory in Taiwan, where it is manufactured and then shipped to the Philippines to be tested and packaged before it is then shipped to China to be integrated into your phone. And that is just for the little processor in your iPhone, not to mention the screen and the casing and the camera. Each one of these has components that are sourced from all around the world. They go through this complex journey to then be assembled and then get put back onto a shipping container to be shipped to your country where you can buy it. No matter how I put it, saying it's a complex global supply chain, there's no way we can even fathom just how big and massive these operations are.
Oh my days, even this side. Mate, that is insane. Bro, how the world works is just crazy. One little issue like this. What if there's like I don't know what I can think of. I can't really say that because it's not possible. But just imagine there was a ship the length of this. Can you see that? Yeah, the length of this. From here to here.
The amount
just blocking the ocean. The world would be fucked.
Space of
And I know that's not possible, but it's just, I don't even know why I'm using that as an example, but it's just any little thing that goes wrong, or in that case a big thing, just changes everything in terms of money for countries, power, and I guess food supplies, and like supplies of like electronics and stuff. It's just
of
nuts.
ocean that these products pass through to eventually make it into our hands. And this is everything, my clothing, my computer, my camera equipment, everything around me passes through this system. To add another layer of weird complexity, the ships themselves, like the physical ships, are also mind-bendingly complex. So let's take the Ever Given, this ship that was stuck in the Suez Canal recently. This ship is chartered by a Taiwanese company. Okay, but it is registered in Panama. I've talked about ship registration in a different video, by the way, and why ships want to be registered in different countries. Anyway, it is registered in Panama, chartered by a Taiwanese company, but the ship itself, the physical ship, is owned by a Japanese company, which is
So is it even anything to do with China?
owned by a bigger conglomerate of ship builders. Oh, and the technical manager on board is actually a German guy, and the crew are a bunch of Indian nationals. I mean, this ship itself is just a symbol of how big and convoluted and multi-layered this huge global system is. Okay, so that's the global economy.
Why do I think it's anything to do with China then? I swear I heard something that was to do with China. Was I just told a bunch of lies?
Let's get back to the Suez Canal. Take a look at this canal for like 5 seconds and you realize that it's not natural, way too straight of lines. But back before it was built, if you wanted to get from Europe to Asia, you had to sort of do this.
Go all the way around, yeah.
Back then, the British controlled this little port in South Africa, which gave them a very nice strategic advantage because everyone who was doing world trade or domination had to pass through them. The British were loving this monopoly over the trade route until like the mid-1800s, when the French went to the Egyptians and they said, hey, is there any way we could like dig out a canal right here on this land bridge that connects Africa with Asia? It's almost 200 kilometers long, but if we could just dig out a canal here, we would save thousands of kilometers on each trip to Asia. Reminder, this is like the 1860s and like they don't have loads of fancy equipment to do this, but they try it anyway. With over 100,000 people, many of them forced laborers, working on this canal for over 10 years, they were able to dig this big canal that connected the Mediterranean Sea to the Red Sea. The British were down here still like, wait, why is no one coming through our Cape anymore? And the French were up here just laughing, feeling so good about their new canal. So over the years, quickly this becomes the epicenter of water control and balance of power. Control over the canal is mainly French and Egyptian for most of its time, but eventually the British just like couldn't help themselves. They needed in on this waterway. Fast forward a few years and all of the big powers get together and say like, whoa, 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 we built this canal with a spirit of cooperation and neutrality. All countries should be able to use this canal even in times of war. Everything will be peaceful and wonderful, and this will be wonderful. No. They signed this treaty about like neutrality and everyone can use it, but let's just say it right now, that's not the way the world works. Soon the globe descended into World War, and it became clear that this canal would not be neutral anytime soon. Hitler wanted it, so him and his Italian allies went down to try to take it over. British fought back, and they were able to keep it, and there were British troops there, so the canal remained in British control until like the 1950s, when finally Egypt was like, okay, listen, France, Britain, this has been fun, this whole pretend that this is neutral, but it's not actually neutral, and you're actually just using it for whatever you want thing. You're done. It is our canal. Get out of here. And he's like, oh, and Israel, you can't come here and use our waterway either. That's part of this. So France and Britain aren't feeling super great. They just got kicked out of like their key strategic waterway. They decide to say no, and they send in a bunch of paratroopers to the Suez Canal, along with Israel's fighters, to recapture the canal from Egypt and to overthrow the government that just kicked them out.
Wait, what the fuck? I didn't even know about this kind of stuff.
And the US is seeing all of this, and they're like, guys, it's not 1850 anymore, okay? Times have changed. You can't just show up wherever you want and just take it over militarily. We don't do that anymore. That's so like old school empire. But the US says you can still be an empire in these times. You just have to be a little smoother about it.
Good, baby, good.
So the US sends in this Canadian guy to settle the conflict over the canal, and everyone's sort of like, okay, fine. And the canal goes back to peace with like some UN peacekeepers to keep it at peace, kind of. Well, no, this isn't gonna last. So this is where the US gets it creative and is like, ooh, what can we do to not have to like fight over the canal, but like do our own thing? And that's when the nuclear bombs come up, where they're like, if we just plant 520 nuclear bombs here in the Israeli desert, we could just have our own canal and then we don't have to fight over this one. So it's 1967, and Israel's like, I'm not super into the idea of you like nuking our desert, but we like nuclear weapons, and we'll totally get on board with that. In the meantime, can we go in and attack Egypt ourselves and get the canal, and you can just sort of back us from the sidelines? And the US is like, okay, fine. So Israel goes in and takes over all of this land, all the way up to the Suez Canal. So it's Egypt on one side, Israel on the other. And for the next few years, this becomes a literal battleground for multiple wars. Like they were building bridges across the canal to like bring in tanks and fight. Oh, and of course, during these years of fighting from like the late 60s to the mid 70s, the canal was closed for obvious reasons.
So this whole time it's been closed, so people are having to go to the route like around Cape, South Africa to Europe, right? This whole time. Imagine the amount of money that was lost during
The
that.
problem is when they closed it, there were 15 ships that were like in process of moving through, and those ships just got stuck there for literally 8 years. So yeah, Ever Given, we know that it was a hard few days. How the world was super worried about you, $400 million a day. Imagine being one of these guys, 8 years. At least they had fun during their time, I guess. Okay, do you see where I'm going with this?
8 years.
What I'm trying to do here is not give you a history lesson of the Suez Canal. I'm trying to explain that this stretch of water has always been a magnet for international conflict. Ever since its very, very conception. After that last war, the US is like, okay, broker a peace, they broker a peace, and then they bring in these helicopters to the Suez Canal with like a water sled behind them, and they drag them along the water because there was a bunch of like live explosives from the wars, and they were trying to like rid them all so that they could resume, you know, like normal shipping lanes. They eventually did that, they got rid of all the explosives and reopened the canal in 1975, and the canal remained peaceful and under the control of its rightful owner, the Egyptians, forevermore, and there was no more conflict or geopolitical scheming ever again.
Oh.
No, that isn't the way the world works. Yes, things have changed in the way that we do it. But the fact is, when you have a system like this, and a large portion of that system, which is money and control and economics and energy, runs through a choke point in that system, there will always be geostrategic value that is put on that system, not just for economics, but for power. So do you think that the United States, who's sort of the big boy world policeman right now, would sit here and let Egypt control the chokehold where 12% of the world economy passes through, including loads of oil? No, that's not how it works. Despite the fact that Egypt is a non-democratic regime that is pretty terrible on all fronts, including human rights, the US still provides $1.4 billion of military aid to Egypt every year. They are always considered a key ally in the Middle East. I mean, the Clinton administration made it very clear that the reason we support Egypt is because they have the Suez Canal and we need them to owe us favors. That continues to...
But why does the Suez Canal benefit the US? Maybe I've missed something, because like I'm sort of thinking imports from Asia. I guess actually because companies like Apple have stuff manufactured in other countries and maybe gets imported from places like China or India or like Taiwan or wherever it comes from. But it will be from the US. It will be a US import even though it's coming from a different country. Maybe that's the case, and if that is, fair enough. But if it's like... I'm just sort of thinking things that come directly from the US. Why would it affect the US in that case? But again, maybe I've already explained that to myself. I'm just sort of thinking that, because in that case, why would the US be so sort of like... Why would they be like funding Egypt just to sort of benefit themselves from the Suez Canal? But I'm just again thinking it's coming from Asian countries to Europe. But again, there's definitely more that I need to know about that. So please let me know what I'm trying to understand there, because I'm kind of stuck with that.
Whenever a US military vessel shows up to the Suez Canal, they get to cut in line and go through quicker than everybody else. So yeah, Egypt owns the canal, but really it's the US behind the scenes that is keeping everything in order. The canal is not neutral, it will never be neutral. There will always be geopolitical importance placed on it. And as long as there's a superpower, that superpower will control the canal. The last thing I'll say here is that we live in a world that is very strange for how peaceful it is. We've had an enduring peace for many, many decades. That peace allows us to have a system like this. And that peace exists partly because we are so entangled with one another economically that it doesn't make sense to go to war. But we have to remember that that peace also exists because all the big powers have really big weapons that are always pointed at each other. If something slips or escalates a little too far, just remember that the Suez Canal isn't the only choke point on Earth where all of this system flows through. And that while we take peace for granted now, it would be naive not to wonder what happens if that were to go away and we were faced with not just one ship being stuck for a few days, but an entire region militarized and unavailable for this type of shipping flow that we're so used to. And for years, I don't want to sound alarmist, but I do want us to be thinking about our reliance on this system and what it means for the future of rising powers that may not want to cooperate as well as they do today. So when I see Ever Given blown off course for a few days and everyone freaking out about it, I don't just see one ship. I see a vulnerable system, and I see myself and how deeply connected I am to that system.
So I'm listening to an audiobook right now.
This is Zadia.
Called Silence.
This is Zadia. Shout out to him getting his money, man. He deserves it. He gets insane ads. I don't know how he does it, but he deserves it, bro. He definitely does deserve it. The money he must get from these ads must be... But what was I going to look at? I just want to quickly search, because I've not actually looked at any videos to do with it. I've searched it up here because that's what I searched up to watch this video, Suez Canal. I just want to click a video that may not... Like, I hope that doesn't get blocked, because I feel like a lot of them are going to get blocked. BBC News, probably going to get blocked. It is going to get blocked. I know it's going to get blocked. Fuck it.
Now it's one of the world's most important shipping routes and it's blocked. A giant container ship ran aground in the Suez Canal after losing power. And at around 200,000 tonnes and over 400 metres long, the container, well, it's going to take some shifting. 50 ships a day normally pass through the canal, carrying 12% of the world's trade. So the pressure is really on to get her refloated. Here's Richard Galp.
Wait, 12%.
It's going to take some shifting. 50 ships a day normally pass through the canal, carrying 12% of the world's trade. So the pressure is really on to get her refloated. Here's Richard Galpin.
Jeez.
One of the world's biggest container ships blocking the Suez Canal, one of the world's most vital trade routes. The ship, operated by a Taiwanese company, Evergreen, heading north through the canal towards the Mediterranean when it lost all power and steering. So what are the reasons for this?
One of them is engine failure. You lose control due to engine failure. You would lose control.
What are those pictures in the background?
Steering failure, or you would lose control, which appears to be the case here, because they have been they have experienced high winds.
The dots here show the congestion that's already built up as other large ships and oil and gas containers arrive in the area, but can go no further. The position of Ever Given totally blocking the route. The 200,000-ton ship has now been stuck for 2 days. The ship's technical managers have ruled out any mechanical or engine failures as a cause of this incident. Work to refloat it continues, but so far has not been successful.
It's an unusual situation, and it's a very dire one. This is the largest vessel ever to go ground in the Suez Canal, and she's gone sideways in the canal, blocking both north and south passage. It could have huge ramifications for global trade, especially between Asia and Europe.
Normally, 50 ships a day pass through the Suez Canal, providing up to 12% of world trade.
That's nuts.
The main alternative for ships travelling between Asia and Europe is around Africa, but this is a much longer route. Richard Galpin, BBC News.
And there we go, crazy stuff. But let's just go back to this video now. You see some of the comments. Well, that plan to nuke a canal through Israel has got to be the most American thing I've ever heard of. Super fascinating explainer. Yeah, that's nuts. Using nukes, not just a nuke, using nukes to make a canal. Looking into Johnny's download files, be like French laughter, man, MP3. You can still be an empire, but you still have to be a bit smooth about it. Suez Canal exists, every country mine. It's sad my phone has been to more countries than me. Yeah, it's kind of depressing, but it's actually nuts how my phone was made in 43 different countries. That's mental. First, let's look at the map. Johnny Harris, circa 2021. The lols on the screen, especially the sunglasses joint. Edit had me dying. Shout out to the editors, always top notch. This man could literally talk about the invention of cement and I would pay total attention. Same. I do really enjoy his videos, man. Johnny, why cottage cheese started a grassroots revolution in Antarctica. Me, eyeballs glued on screen. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this one. Again, crazy story. Let me know your thoughts on this. Again, I wasn't really too up to date with it before I reacted to this, but now I understand it a bit more. And just the history of it in general. It's just crazy. I guess the greed that countries have for power in this case. And yeah, it just shows the importance of little things that can go wrong can lead to catastrophic problems in terms of like food imports, exports, etc. Like it's just in every way possible it does affect. But yeah, interesting story. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Until next time, like, subscribe, peace.